Hi from Berlin. This is the Incredible Edible Aquinos. I am the founder and executive director of the Black Sex Worker Collective, and welcome to the first edition of video updates that I like to do because I realize because I am like the only one full-time person that works at BSWC. I've got to take on a lot, right? So it's very difficult and very frustrating for me to do the email updates at times. And then it can go months and months without me doing it, even though we're continuously doing work. So I thought it's a lot easier for me to do some video updates and then do the MailChimp thing, which, MailChimp as well is a very frustrating thing to deal with. And I can't stand it, and I cannot wait to be able to have an intern to be able to handle that for us, because I cannot deal with it. So what I'm going to do here, there's cats in the background. What I'm going to do here is that I'm going to like verbally tell you all the updates, and then I will do a follow-up with an actual email with links and everything. So this is our September edition. I am reporting live from Berlin, Germany. I have been on the road all year trying to build alliances and create art that will support the collective in the long run, and I hope that you all will take part and support us and keep us going. We are now in this is what, year 2, right? This is the second year that we have been active, doing so many things. I know it seems like we're probably doing nothing. I'm just trying to find my pen so I can take notes while I for things that I might remember as I'm talking. So anyway, so one of the first things that I want to tell you that we are doing is that we're working on the Universal Periodic Review with other of our sister organizations, such as Best Practices, Desiree Alliance, Outlaw Project. So I have sent out an email link to a bunch of different groups and people to have them included in this report, have their voices heard in this report. And I'm not sure who responded. I've got to do a follow-up with that this week, and we're hoping to have this done like by middle of September. So if you received a link to a survey for the Universal Periodic Review, please definitely respond to that. It's important. We want to make recommendations to these different governments and build some alliances with you and other organizations worldwide to make sure that the sex worker voices are heard, the trans voices are heard, the LGBTQ people, I don't know why this cat's making this noise, are heard, and we make these recommendations to try and make some serious shifts in society. So if you got that link, make sure that you sign up, you do the survey for that. As well, if you want to know more about what the UPR is, you can visit the Best Practices website or the blacksexworkercollective.org website, and there'll be more information there on what the UPR is and all that fancy explanation. Next up, which is really good news, is that we want to give a big shout out to Third Wave Fund. They are one of our regular organizations that have sponsored us in the past. This year they have given us 2 funds. So we received a $7,500 grant to Mobilize Power Fund grant from them to do some organizing around the political climate that's happening. So while it's not a lot of money, really it is not. It can barely even pay myself to do this work. We are going to be able to start laying down the groundwork for a lot of things. So what's really important about getting this funding is that we will be able to start to do a media campaign around the 2020 elections. It's very important that people understand who they're voting for and what the voting is, and some of the issues that we as sex worker rights activists are concerned about, particularly with some of the political candidates, particularly Kamala Harris. So there's a lot of people for different reasons that really support Kamala's movement, and they seem to fail to realize that she is a cop which is like number one, like public enemy number one in any marginalized group's fight. So people are very much supporting her, and like I saw Spike Lee doing like fundraising for her, and I think it's actually preposterous. So with our media campaign, we want to make sure that we get out there that that Kamala is not the one. And then we want to make sure that we also try to shift the dialogue, public dialogue around who sex workers are and how it compares to other forms of employment that people find to be respectful, but are just as or even worse, dangerous and degrading to human existence, and that sex work is not like the absolute worst thing that a person can do for a living. So that's part of what our media campaign will tackle. You'll get to see more of that once we really start hashing it out and try to get some things pushed out. Cat smell. Try to get some things pushed out leading up in ending off 2019. So yes, that's our media campaign. As well, with that funding, we are able to start two wonderful initiatives. It's like very tiny start, but we're going to start it. So the first one is the housing initiative. Now, I don't know if in one of my last email updates that I even mentioned what brought me on the journey to leave New York City for a while and hit the road. But what happened, I'll try to keep it short, was that I had someone, an employer, I was working as a housekeeper, and they had promised to get me housing. But when things hit the fan, when I became pregnant and became sick and very irritable, while I was homeless and practically staying at my cleaning client's house because I was trying to do some redecorating and just like trying to build up their Airbnb business. And anyway, the person had promised to help me get housing, and when they began to, let's just for lack of a better term, start to pick on me, considering that I was, pregnant and a woman, I let him know, this white Jewish man know, that he was being a misogynist, and then he fired me and didn't help me get the housing. And then on top of it, the person that had the housing, which was one of my very regular clients that I've had for a long time, also didn't seem to think or care or realize that I was like in her face everyday homeless and needed housing and had money and work that she mainly provided me with to pay rent, and the apartment was just sitting there for a year just empty. And here I am needing housing, and she just wouldn't give it to me. She wanted to put me through all the red tape to get it, but as soon as this white man said to her, they wanted to help me get the housing, she was just like ready to do a lease. But anyway, they dragged their feet on it. And just a disclaimer, the reason why I said that I made sure to point out that he was white and Jewish and male and gay was because when we finally got into a debate about, how he was humiliating me as a person, he started to hit me with the poverty porn of being Jewish and whatever, and it was just a big ass mess. So once I realized that is what I was up against in New York, with the rent prices and not being able to afford housing, I said, this is the permission I needed to leave. I've been wanting to leave the city for a while and get out and explore the world. So I decided, I'm just gonna leave and go see if I can make life someplace else. I haven't made life anyplace else. I will be back in New York City in September, but that very thing is the reason why the housing initiative needs to exist. And there'll be more information on this as we are getting ready to work on building the social media pages for that. But basically it's to avoid all the red tape. It's to ask people with resources and housing in different ways to, God, these cats, in different ways to help support the marginalized communities in getting in housing, getting some of our housing back. In a perfect world, oh Jesus, I'm gonna have to put you guys on pause. I can't take the smell of these cats. I had to switch rooms. I'm actually getting ready for a gig, which is why I'm in all of his face. So anyway, yeah, in a perfect world, the person who had the apartment would have just given it to me, and like at least given me a chance to get back into some housing in the neighborhood that I kind of grew up in. But she didn't. And in a perfect world, the man that had the means to help me build my credit, which he was helping me doing initially, by just putting me as a signer on one of his accounts. If he had done everything that he was supposed to do, this would have been a fantastic start to the housing initiative. And, there's different ways to help people, from giving money, from giving housing, to putting them as a signer on an account. No card needed. It's just that if you're making payments on like a credit card and you have somebody as a signer on the account, it can help them build their credit, because a lot of times people can't get into housing because of their credit, right? And then there's the other stuff with like race and just race that and sexual identity that comes into play to keep people out of housing. So anyway, the housing initiative is supposed to kind of combat that. Like, it's a radical housing initiative, and in the way that we're like, okay, fuck the system. We want to get people in housing in the best way that we can. So when the page is created, which it will soon, I hope that people with means will come in, and we can come up with different ways and strategies to make this housing work that doesn't infringe upon your good credit and your niceness, but definitely supports the community. So that's the housing initiative. The other thing that we are working on is the bail fund, right? These LGBTQ trans people that are going into getting locked up and getting killed over because they couldn't afford minor bail bonds is ridiculous, and it really hurt my feelings to know that this was happening, and then the collective doesn't, we don't know anything about it until it's too late. So we want to definitely start a bail fund to support our community, and we're going to be looking for somebody that can kind of take on that job, can go in to the courts, or have connections with these other organizations who may go into the courts and be able to support people not getting locked up and potentially losing their lives over like these tiny fines. Like, we want to be able to support that. So we are working on that, and you can look out for more information on that in the next newsletter. Let's see what else is happening. Along with the that the $7,500 grant is gonna like cover a lot of that. There's more things there, but I can't quite remember because I'm actually not looking at the grant. It's not right in front of me. But those were the definite major things. Oh, as well, Third Wave had given us another fund, $10,000 grant, operational funding, which again is a very, very tiny bit of money. $10,000 is really not a lot of money. A lot of these grants come in with the idea that we have money coming in from other sources to be able to like to have like an annual budget of maybe like $75,000, which still is not a lot of money. In some organizations, they're paying people that just to hold one position within the organization, right? So just imagine $10,000 isn't anything, and we have to cover a lot of things like that, like a lot of overhead, bills and transportation and things like that. So it's not a lot of money, but it's a definite start, and we are so grateful to have it over 2 years. So a $20,000 grant, $10,000 each year. And we're really, really excited to have a place to start. So thanks so much to Third Wave. I want to encourage everyone. We're, with both of these fundings, we're trying to make sure that we have merchandise to keep people buying, and we hope to start a monthly or a yearly membership, and try to have like at least 100 members a year to to keep us going. Like, if we have a $50 membership and it's 100 people, that's an extra $5,000 a year that we can use to pay somebody a stipend or something to have us continue to do this work. It's very difficult to do this work with no money, little to no money. It's hard, it's painful, especially for like someone like me. Let's just say, I'm trying to keep this organization going and I want us to be here for the long run, but then, when I'm struggling every day to figure out how to eat or where am I going to sleep, it makes it very hard for me to sit down and do this work that, I'm not getting paid for. And I want to do it because I love my community, but I also don't want to die because I'm trying to do this and I'm starving at the same time. So the funding is very important, but it also is even more important for people to help us sustain. So if you're giving us a monthly donation, thank you. You can still go to the Act Blue website and make donations, which are tax deductible at the end of the year. So it's coming around that time. Make your donations. We take it no matter how small, and definitely no matter how big. We want it. We would really need it to be able to support us, especially being too. Another announcement is that we're trying to be able to have another branch started, as a as a what's the term I'm looking for, like a test project. So we're trying to have a Philadelphia branch, which will be supported by one of our regular members, Christopher Alexander Love Hall, who is out in Philly, one of our queer activists out in Philly. And they're also working on the Philly Trans March, and you can totally go there and support that in as many ways as you can, physically, financially. So we're trying to do that. That should have actually started already, but I had to keep putting it off because we didn't have any funding yet, and I can't have these people doing this work and trying to open up spaces, regular spaces for people to come in for support, and they are not getting any kind of stipend or money, right? So we're definitely trying to do that, and we're trying to start that as soon as possible. What was I gonna say? Speaking, it was something about the stipends and doing the work, and it slipped my mind. Anyway, the Philadelphia branch. So we're hoping to kick that off, and please make sure that you buy some of the merch, make sure you contribute. You're going to be able to contribute directly to that sector of the Black Sex Worker Collective. We want to be able to try this and see how this goes for the first year, and then we can move on to another branch. With a lot of my travels, I got to learn about different groups in different parts of the world that actually really need some support, really need some regular support. So trust me, we're trying to divvy out ways to get support all over the globe, but I want to make sure that things are strong and that we have a lot of solid ground rules, because I don't want to make any mistakes that are that cannot be repaired. If we do this, I don't want to cause any harm, and that's my main thing when I'm doing this work, is to try to not do any harm to people, especially not harm that's irreparable. I don't want to burn bridges and break seriously good bonds and hurt people that need support. So we want to take our time and do this. As well, along with the Philly branch, we're also trying to start an official trans sector of the Black Sex Worker Collective, which will be led by activist Alexandra Cruz, who I wrote about for Stoya's website, Zero Spaces. You can go check that out. The link should be on my website, akinos.com, I hope, and or the BSWC page. I can't remember. A lot has been happening. I've been on the road since January. It is now almost September, right? So, as well as Christian. So, we want to make sure that we have a very specific portion of the collective that really focuses on the trans issues, and that the trans people can have their own space to come into and go for support. So look out for that as well. When I was traveling, when I was on the road, in the middle part of my tour, actually for the entire part of the tour, one of the things that really, really, really saved me and really moved me was being able to go to the sex worker spaces that were available in some of these countries, the sex worker led spaces, because the one in Hong Kong was just a mess and I actually hated it. But in New Zealand and in Australia, it was really, really important to have those spaces, and it means so much to go into a space with people that understand you, and people that support you, and people that know what you need, and people that are mindful of how they speak to you and how they deal with you. And having these wonderful women like the Soldiers of Pole, who we're actually doing some work with as well, in LA, buy me groceries and help me get my car fare to go from one part of the state to the other. It was so refreshing, so healing, so necessary to my mindset, because this is a scary thing. I am not doing this for fun. I'm not doing this on a trust fund. I hit the road. I took a chance to see the world, to try to make a change, to try to build alliances. And, the support I got from women mainly, because if it was not for the women, I would not have made it through. And then these sex worker led spaces and these sex worker positive spaces. So seeing that and being moved by that, I felt like really and truly that there needs to be a space on the East Coast that's Black led, that's trans led, that's Black centered, Black focused, that can support workers coming in from different parts of the world that might need just people to talk to. Maybe they need a little bit of food, maybe they need a Metro card or whatever. So understand that when you make a donation to us, this is what this stuff is going to, as well as to people reaching out to us and reaching out to our sister organizations and saying, hey, I'm broke, I need some money for whatever. We don't really care what the money is for. We just want to help people. So just understand that this is what motivated me to do this and to continue to do this. And this is why I want to create these different spaces all over the globe and continue to have the collective thriving. Because it is very needed. There's nothing like having a group of your peers to support you when you're coming in town. Touring is hard. If you are part of my Patreon, I just uploaded one of my videos today where I was crying about leaving Australia. Touring is hard. Touring is lonely. Some of the things that happened to me when I didn't have that support was very hard, lots of crying ensued, scared shitless, no one to fucking talk to, you know what I mean? So that is important that those things are in place, but the only way for them to stay in place is if we have money. And that is the difference between us and organizations that focus like on trafficking or the trafficking panic. They have money and we don't, and they build their legacy and they build their wealth on the back of sex workers and immigrants and trans people, and the back of the cash poor and so on. And we need some of that money as well. We don't want to take on any of the trafficking language because that is not who we are and that is not what we stand for. We do not support slavery in any way. And once upon a time, I wanted to steal some of that trafficking language to get some of that money, but now I don't. Now I don't. So we just want to keep it positive. Let people understand there is a difference between slavery, human slavery, and work. And we are here for those that want to do the work or those that want to leave the work, because in any job, people sometimes don't want to be there, right? And we need to support those people that don't want to do this work, because this work is not easy. It can be emotionally taxing, it can be financially draining, and it can mess with you on a mental skill when you're living in a world that says that, sex is supposed to be given free to the cis hetero patriarchy, as opposed to you making a living from it. And then when you put into the equation that you're an immigrant or you're an LGBTQ person, and you're poor into that equation, it makes it really harder just to have your basic needs met. So we want to be here to exist over the long haul. And be able to give to these communities and give to these people individually without all the red tape. Of course, there has to be rules. Everything has to have rules. We can't just be giving away money and starting opening spaces and expecting for it to be like kumbaya and great. But we do want to make people know that these services are here, that we are here, and we're radical, and this is what we're doing. So yeah, make sure you get to the collective. Look out for the email updates with this information and more. Look up the Philly Trans March. Make sure you go out there and support any way that you can. And shout out to one of the other organizations that fund us pretty regularly, and that is Resist. The Resist organization out in, are they in Massachusetts? Yes, Massachusetts, because that's where Kendra is, right? All right, so shout out to Resist. We can't forget you. I see all your emails. So thank you. I don't know what else to add to this update, but I'm going to be doing a lot more video updates, so look out for the BSWC channel. Oh my God, speaking of the BSWC channel, how could I forget? Part of why I've been traveling was so I can go around the world and interview different people that do different forms of labor. Doesn't matter who they are or what they are. But PJ Starr and I came up with this project last year that we wanted to work on called the Quotidian Whore, and it's a multimedia project, and I'm kind of working on parts of the video segment, and I go out and I interview people and I ask them questions about their work and what they're doing. Some interviews are serious, some are not, and it's basically to try to shift social perception and language on what the idea of sex is and what the idea of work is, and the intersectionality of feminism. It doesn't matter what kind of woman you are, but what's important to note is that at any point in anyone's life, especially if you're femme identified in any way, you will be seen as a whore to someone. So that is what the Quotidian Whore is about. It's coming to IGTV. I'm already talking to people about editing and doing all of this stuff. Look for it on our YouTube. I'm going to create a very specific BSWC YouTube channel. It's going to be on my YouTube channels, all my Horologic and my Akinos YouTube channels, as well. It will be on IGTV, and the raw files are on my Patreon. So if you are not a Patreon member of me, patreon.com/AKYNOS Akinos, you should join. It's a perfect way to pay me directly for some of the work that I do. So that way, if I'm making money, I don't really have to, I can take the money that I would pay myself from some of these grants and put it back into the community and be able to like pay people stipends to do some of this very important work that I can't possibly do all by myself. I am not going to be in New York a whole lot. You know, I'm doing a lot of traveling. I'm still trying to figure things out here. I'm still trying to like, you know, make alliances there and do all these things. So I can't do this work myself. So I want to be able to pay people. But if I have enough money to sustain me, like if I'm making $5,000 a month on my Patreon, yeah, I can totally forego some money and pay it to my people to give them salaries. So please, if you are not a member of my Patreon, please go sign up. This is going to be the first raw file that shows up on my Patreon before I have it edited and put out into the newsletter. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to making more of these video updates, and I will see you in September. Catch me at the Sunday show for the New York Burlesque Festival if you want to meet. I might have some BSWC merch with me that I will be selling to try and fundraise and make some money. And yeah, be on the lookout. I'm sure there's going to be so much more in the email than this. Thank you for listening, and see you soon. Check the description for links to like and follow us on social media. Sign up for our newsletter at thebswc.org, and please consider making a tax-deductible donation at actblue.com/donate/BSWC.